Hey, Earth Science. Today we're going to begin the study of the ocean. That would be Oceanography, and that's going to take us to chapter 19. Now, in this introductory section, it's really very basic. Not a whole lot needs to be explained. It's just here's some facts for you to know moving forward, which means this lecture isn't going to be much more interesting than me reading the slides to you, and then if there's anything that needs a clarification or an explanation, for me to put that at the end. So if that sounds awful to you, I would just recommend that you read the section and spare yourself the anguish. However, if you're an auditory learner or for some reason you just find it comforting to hear me read it to you, then by all means enjoy this video. Let's begin section 1 by looking at the objectives. You remember the objectives are at the front of the section. They should be on the side, but I'm going to read them to you anyway. So here's objective 1. Please name the major divisions of the global ocean. It's something you want to be able to do. Second, describe how oceanographers study the ocean. And last, explain how sonar works. All right, let's get into it. So the Earth can be called a water planet because it has a global ocean. That is the body of salt water that covers nearly 3/4 of the Earth's surface. Now, the global ocean contains almost all the water on the Earth. It's more than 97% of the water on the Earth. So all the water in the rivers and stuff that we were learning previously, that accounts for less than 3% of the water on the Earth. Lastly, although the ocean is the most prominent feature of Earth's surface, it's only about 1/4000th of the Earth's total mass and only about 1/800th of the Earth's total volume. So even though it completely dominates the surface, the planet mostly is mantle. It's all molten inside. But as long as we're just talking about the surface, yeah, the ocean is the most prominent feature. Okay, so the global ocean is divided up. This goes with that first objective, so heads up for that. The global ocean is divided into 5 major oceans. So you've got the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Arctic, and Southern oceans. So the Pacific Ocean, as you probably know, is the largest ocean on Earth's surface. And after that, the next largest ocean is the Atlantic Ocean. The Indian Ocean would be the third largest ocean, and it has an average depth of 3.09 kilometers. And the Arctic Ocean is the smallest, and that surrounds the North Pole. So a sea is different than an ocean. A sea is a large, commonly saline, that means saltwater, body of water that is smaller than an ocean, and it may be partially or completely surrounded by land. Examples of major seas include the Mediterranean Sea, the Caribbean Sea, and South China Seas. So, for example, if you were to look at a map of Europe, below the map of Europe or above Africa, you'd see the Mediterranean Sea. It's pretty much surrounded by land. It does connect to the Atlantic Ocean over by Spain and Morocco, but it's almost completely surrounded by land. Okay, so if you were to look at a map of the world, you should see the oceans labeled. Depending on how specific the map is, it may divide up seas into, say, it could divide up the Atlantic into the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic. Not all maps do that, they don't have to, but the point is, any map of the world should label the seas, and so take a look at the labels, if you please. Anyway, moving on. So the exploration of the ocean is part of the field of science known as oceanography. Oceanography is the scientific study of the ocean, including the properties and movement of ocean water, the characteristics of the ocean floor, and the organisms that live in the ocean. The voyage of the HMS Challenger laid the foundation for the modern science of oceanography, and today many ships perform oceanographic research. So a quick reading check, just to make sure that you're paying attention. See if you can answer this question for yourself. List 3 characteristics of the ocean that oceanographers study. You can pause the video, try to answer that question, and then resume. So 3 characteristics of the ocean that oceanographers study. They would study physical characteristics, chemical composition, and life forms of the ocean. All right, moving on. Sonar. Sonar refers to sound, navigation, and ranging. So it's an acronym. And sonar is a system that uses acoustic signals and returned echoes to determine the location of objects or to communicate. Scientists measure the time that the sound waves take to travel from the transmitter to the ocean floor and then to the receiver in order to calculate the depth of the ocean floor. Scientists then use this information to make maps and profiles of the ocean floor. So it's basically echolocation. A sound wave, a ping, usually hear that in like movies where you're in a submarine, boom, and it goes out. It echoes off of whatever is being measured, and then you can use that time to make a map of the surface that it reflected off of. Submersibles is an important part of oceanography. They are underwater research vessels. They enable oceanographers to study the ocean depths. One example of a submersible is the bathysphere, which is a spherical diving vessel that remains connected to the research ship for communications and for life support. Another kind of piloted submersible is called a bathyscaphe. It's probably a bathyscaphe. That sounds hilarious. Is a self-propelled, free-moving submarine. Continuing with submersibles, there are other modern submersibles like submarine robots. These robot submersibles are remotely piloted and allow oceanographers to study the ocean depths for long periods of time. Right, so continuing on with the exploration of the oceans, when it comes to underwater research, submersibles have helped scientists make exciting discoveries about the deep ocean. So during one dive in a submersible, startled oceanographers saw communities of unusual marine life living at depths and temperatures where scientists thought that almost no life could exist. Many of these life forms have unusual adaptations that allow them to live in hostile environments. I'm sorry, the textbook, exciting discoveries, startled oceanographers. Okay, we get it. We're trying to make science exciting. The point is, we live on land, we walk around, we hike, we go to places like volcanoes and mountains, and yeah, it's really unusual places where it's hard for us to live. We get the idea of what it's like to be alive, and we get used to things alive in the places where we can go. Well, we can't go down into the depths of the ocean, and so our idea of what it's like to be alive doesn't match that place. So when we finally visit a place on the planet that we've never been to before, and we find something alive down there, it is a bit like, oh, right, we thought we understood how life worked, and it just adjusts that a little bit.